questions from Jason?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we got a few of them. Oh, fun. So, the first question I want to ask you is, well, here we'll wait for people to get in before we start this. Make sure we have no streaming problems. Okay, it's up. Okay, it's up. So, where'd the Amish thing come from?
That's kind of a long story, but it originated from Jim Foster, Psycho Jimmy. He's the one that made up some enormous, elaborate story and told everybody that I was Amish. I think it stemmed from 2017 Blizzard Bash. Maybe I think I had a flannel on or something, and I don't drink and smoke or like not cussing or anything. And somebody asked Jimmy the next weekend at the Turkey Derby. They said, "What's his deal? Is he like some kind of weird religion or something?" And Jim was like, "Yeah, he's Amish. He doesn't like to talk about it, but he's actually completely Amish." And so he called me to tell me about it, and then it just kind of all added together because at the time Jimmy didn't even know that the first bumper I ever built I actually built out of wood, so it all kind of went together pretty good. Still on the shelf behind me.
Wait, you built? Wait, hold on. Go back a little bit. You built a bumper out of wood?
Yeah, I mean, well, the first bumper I built was for myself, 2015, to run at 2016 Capital City Carnage when Sam had it. It was a mod show at the time in Topeka, and I built the first one as a loaded New Yorker bumper with worked hand in hand with Sam Williams on that one. And after I built that first one, I realized I had to do something to make it a lot easier and actually get parts cut, not cut it all by hand. So I had a 1/2-inch piece of plywood and jigsaw, circular saw, and I would cut it, draft it, shoot it together with a trim nailer, and then take it back apart if I didn't like the angles or it didn't match the New Yorker slope that I wanted. And it's still behind me. All the dimensions are wrote on it, every degree of every angle, and all the linear dimensions are still on it. Someday I'll probably put it in my basement and varnish it or something, but it's always been a pretty good conversation piece, but most people don't know. I mean, it's not like I had any fancy software or anything or nobody to give me the files. It was all it was a lot of trial and error, that's for sure.
I thought I heard that story from somebody. I thought that's why they called the whole Amish thing the whole.
No, the Amish thing came from Jim before he even knew about that. So it was kind of I just chuckled inside because nobody at the time had any idea that I built. Well, a couple local guys, buddies that were in my shop, laughing at me while I was doing it. My whole shop was full of sawdust, and it was a good time.
So that was the first. So the first Amish Pointy was the New Yorker bumper, the loaded one. Or?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, you couldn't have a fabricated pointy bumper. They were, you couldn't run them. Fabricated bumper had to be 8 inches, 4 inches of point over 36, and so I got with Sam because at the time there was one group of guys that were building some awesome, like next level loaded bumpers, and it was JYD, Jaron Hirschman, and that whole crew from up in Iowa. They built some awesome stuff, and I seen them out there for the first time, Blizzard Bash. I think 2014 was the first year I ran out there, and I saw them, and I was like, man, I got to step up my game because I always ran pointy bumpers, but nothing like that. And it motivated me to do it. And then getting with Sam exactly to fit it inside the rules, and there was a lot of backlash from his techs, from head techs, but Sam stuck to his guns on it, and I mean I did it hand in hand with him and got his approval on everything. So it was a loaded New Yorker bumper, and that's the way they had to be for the first probably 3 to 4 years of building them. I mean, until so many other people started building them, and the squeaky gear gets the grease. You know what I mean?
Did you ever think it'd grow to what it is now?
No, and sometimes I still can't believe it because the orders, they keep coming in, and I mean, honestly, I've never advertised. It's just been something that I started out building for my friends, and then it was a heck of an advantage to have them when no one else did, just because of what they do and how they perform on a car. But now it seems like everywhere I go, people are stroking me with my own bumper, and that kind of sucks. But
I'm gonna give you credit. You're the reason everybody has to buy pointies these days. Like, you're the reason I had to buy a pointy because I kept getting climbed, so it's easier to climb than it is to get climbed.
Yeah, I hate that word. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I get a lot of messages and they ask me, do you make a climber bumper? And I said, no, I make a New Yorker replica because, I mean, it's the reason your dad's been in it forever. All these OG guys that have been in it, they wouldn't run New Yorker bumpers for one reason. They snooted the front of your car. You know, a factory New Yorker bumper, the way it's designed, if you put that on factory horns, it's going to snoot it to the moon. But, I mean, the my bumper is cloned off of the internals of a New Yorker bumper, not the skin. I mean, so that's if you would take a New Yorker internal backing and lay it right on the top of mine, top to top, you could draw straight lines from the gaps where the chrome is. And I mean, it's virtually identical. It's a couple of degrees off, but it took a lot of, in the beginning, it wasn't easy. It took a ton of convincing and a ton of pictures. And I mean, I still have albums on my phone that are just labeled pointy, to where when promoters would say, that's not even close, I would send them this whole row of pictures, and then they would kind of either come around or just quit talking to me.
So you don't like the term climber, even though that's pretty much what everybody calls it?
Yeah, I mean, I never called it that. The people that were copying my bumper called it that. I've never called it a climber. I mean, it's a New Yorker replica, and that's what they're designed to do. I always tell people it's a New Yorker bumper. I mean, I didn't come up with the design; Chrysler did. And so to say climber, I understand what it does. I mean, it's easily described as that, but I mean, that's not really the reason I built it per se. It's there's there's still a lot. I don't know. There's a lot of people out there making them, and it seems like a lot of them have gotten closer and closer to my design with every one of their redesigns. So it can be frustrating, but at the end of the day, I mean, options are a good thing. Somebody might not like me, so they might not want to buy my bumper, and there's always somebody out there willing to do it cheaper, right?
Pretty much, that's business, I suppose.
I guess.
So, how many, if you don't mind, how many do you think you've sold?
I have built, maybe not all have left, but 405.
How long have you been building them?
I built my first one in 2015, and then I only sold them. So I built my first one, ran it, and then at the time, Ryan Sungaluski, I got invited on their team the next year, 2017. And before that, it was 2016 Blizzard Bash. I built one for Ryan Songaluski, and he had always ran the big wide, which was considered like what everybody called a ski bumper. It was 8x8 square, really wide. There's still a lot of them floating around, and he had never ran something like that, because I can remember the first time through tech at Capital City Carnage. I mean, I was literally getting laughed at because the ends were tapered. And at the time, people hit with the ends of their bumpers more than they did the middle. And they were like, well, you can't even do damage with the end. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of my theory. And they're like, well, that's dumb. And I was like, it might be. I don't know. Let's give it a shot. And I remember when Ryan ran his first one, he took a real hard one rail shot, sitting still, penning some cars in the heat, and watching it deflect and literally just change the direction of where his car was pointed, unload the rail. He got out afterwards, and he's like, I'll never run anything else, period. It took a little while to convince certain people, but it's, I don't know. It works for me, and I tell everybody, there's not a blanket product. Nothing is built in this derby world for everyone. So if somebody doesn't like it, I mean, there's plenty of 76 replicas out there,
So, do you think that since you brought the Amish Pointy on, do you think that's changed the course of derbying?
I mean, it's definitely changed the way you have to drive on the track. Not just my bumper, but just I don't want to take all the credit for that. It's not just my bumper. I mean, there's a lot of mine out there now. But if you think about the way you have to drive, even defensively, everybody's just basically sizing each other up. It's who's a little bit taller than the next guy. I hate playing the height game. I mean, I set my cars lower than height limit just pretty much everywhere we go, just because, I mean, to me, they do more damage at that height. But I've also been there to where I knew I had to set my car as high as possible, and because it's low back ends and high front ends, and there's been plenty of discussion on Facebook about that lately. I see it in passing.
I think they're all idiots, if you're going to ask me.
Yeah, I mean, there's truth to a lot of the stuff that's been going on. I don't feel like, you talk about these wedge cars and these wedge bumpers and all that, which is a whole nother subject, but I don't know.
What are your thoughts on the wedged rear bumpers?
I mean, personally, I'm not going to say I don't like them, but I'm not going to run one. I mean, they're to roll people, in my opinion. I mean, I've never rolled anyone. I've drove a pretty hard wedge Lincoln for a couple years, Bash for Cash, tons of different kicker shows, Turkey Derby. I've never rolled a single person. I mean, I'm not there to hurt anybody, and rolling somebody to me is, I mean, it gets the crowd going and everything, but that guy's got to go to work on Monday, and all it takes is a hand out the window, and I mean, it can affect your livelihood and everything. I mean, no one's got hurt bad, but it could easily happen. And I mean, I'll be the first one to put your lower A arm underneath your seat. I mean, I love backing these cars up. Like, I love people give me crap all the time when I was running that Lincoln. Well, why don't you drive it forward? And I'm like, I like backing it up, But I mean, I told Tim Clark in 2000, I guess it was 2018, I won Bash. In 2019, I took it back to Bash for Cash, and I actually back half the car. After 18, the rails kind of did some goofy stuff, so I put a new back half body and frame on the same car. And when I took it back, Tim really didn't like it, and he said these wedge cars are ruining the sport, yada yada. I told him before we went out there, I said, if I roll a single person, you break my stick, because I mean, I had plenty of opportunity in the heats. I don't know how many people I had on my roof, but if I saw them going over, I immediately hit forward or lock the brakes up. I mean, I'm there. Like I said, I don't. To me, rolling somebody is a cop out of just beating them, in my opinion. But I mean, you roll them, you pack their headers full of dirt, this and that. I mean, I get it. Some people enjoy rolling people over. Now, there's a difference to me if you're coming across that track, 30 mile an hour, borderline out of control, and you hit somebody and the inertia, you roll them, that's a different story. But if you park underneath their rockers and hold it to the floor 3/4 of the way across the track, you're trying to roll the guy. And it's not, to me, that's not putting on a show. That's just, I don't know. I don't like that driving style. So I struggle with that lean forward bumper. And like I said, everybody's got their own opinion. Mine's not right, but I think you actually asked me why I didn't run that kind of bumper on my car.
I did. That's
and if I recall, I think I told you, I want my bumper to catch suspension and steering. I mean, wedge bumpers don't break stuff. And obviously my car whale-tailed. I mean, you're on borrowed time out there. I wasn't running a hump plate, and we burned all the patch plates we could on the back of our rails, but you can only get so many plates when they got to be inch apart with the weld. And I mean, we knew the cars were going to whale-tail, but they had a lot of life in them before they did.
So, let's talk about the feature over there at Gold Rush this year. The trans was going out, or what was going on? Because you were going crazy that night. It was insanity to watch.
We weren't in the feature. We were the losers.
Well,
let's get that straight.
I was trying to be nice, but
I don't care. That's we signed up for that show loving the fact it was one-on-one to the end. I mean, that right there defines to me who the best of the best is at that given time. And so once you go to the loser side, it kind of takes the wind out of your sail. And I had a tail shaft failure actually on a transmission in the heat. Didn't even realize it till we got back to the tent, and had to put a trans in my car, which anybody that's built many mod cars knows that's a tough one, And luckily I had a assembled trans there, dressed and everything ready to go. But I didn't have a whole lot of help. I mean, it's tough being that far away from home, and had a couple of great people kick in to help me and put a trans in it. And in the mix of everything, I don't know who did it. I don't know how it happened, and it really is irrelevant, but the case got cracked of the new trans on the lower fitting. It's a simple thing. I mean, everybody that's built many derby cars has cracked a case before over tightening that fitting. And I don't know who did it, and it doesn't matter. I mean, I could have did it myself is what I told, my teammates. But the fact of the matter is however it happened, it wasn't intentional no matter what. So there's no use to go on a witch hunt. Who did it? It's done, and so knowing that the night before, there was no time to put another one in it. So I just basically drained it down, capped everything off. I emery clothed everything. I ground the V out, and debated on even trying to stick weld it because I always bring aluminum rods with me, and I don't know if you've ever welded with an aluminum welding rod before, but it's not good. And so I thought if I could dry it out with a torch and emery cloth it, and I could get some epoxy in it and get it sealed and seal the fitting into the trans. And so we did that. And then about a half hour before we had to pull our cars up for retech, put it back together, fired it, filled it up, and everything was great. And then I just assumed the vibration from, a mod drivetrain being welded in solid, it started to seep, and then it started to drip like pretty fast. And by the time I made it back up there to the line, it was almost a stream running down. And I told the teammates, it was like, I mean, you just got to make lemonade out of lemons, I had a funnel sitting in it over full right there, and had my teammate's son pull it as we drove into the opening and cap it really fast. And I mean, when we pulled in there to the line, I even shut it off before they did the countdown because I thought, man, if I have 15 minutes, I'll be lucky, And I run 350 turbos, so it's not a deep pan. It doesn't hold the capacity of a 400. So I was very surprised, as far as how long it lasted. But as far as the way I drove, I mean, I think somebody was going to have to drive like that with the caliber of drivers on the track. Virtually there were 6 National Blizzard Bash teams on the track. You know what I mean? Every one of those teams was either a complete Blizzard Bash national team or half of it, and I know every single one of those guys. And before the Derby, we all hung out there. And I mean, a lot of people know who's running together, but at the end of the day, I mean, anybody that talked to me, I just told them, listen, we're all losers. None of us wanted to be here. I mean, I'm just going to go drive my car. And I knew my teammates could probably bring it home. So if I was going to drive a little more aggressive, and plus it just felt good to actually be able to drive a car and perform because we had some pretty bad mechanical luck in the first 2 heats. Or the second heat, basically. So it was just fun. It's nice to get out there. I mean, I run those stupid tall headers, and it's not like everybody gets on me about it, but I did it the first time at a county fair here, my hometown show, and I just remember every single kid in the stands just lights up. They see those and they hear the engine, and I mean, I was that kid, when I knew nothing about demolition derby because I didn't grow up in demolition derby, like zero. I didn't start until I was 17 running mini cars, and no one did it in my family or anything like that. But it's you go out there and you build a hard car, and like somebody said, you can't really say be the hammer not the nail and then go out there and sandbag.
So what is the exact story behind the tall headers?
I built them for my nephew. My brother-in-law runs with me at some of these bone stock shows, and I built them for my nephew when he was 13. It's kind of a running joke, and we hung them on the wall in my brother-in-law's shop, and I said, if you ever run a full-size car, that's going to be your headers. And I got a picture with them when they were taller than him, right when I built them. And then our county fair, I actually promoted it the last few years, but it got kind of stale like a lot of county fairs do, and I wasn't promoting it at the time. And I dug a wood grain square body station wagon out of the weeds, and I said, I'm literally just going to build a car to have fun with and put on a show. I mean, it was a terrible car, non-gusset, rusty, square body wagon. And I put a pointy on the front, a pointy on the back, and 700s all the way around. It's set dead level. And I don't even remember if I put a full cage in it. And I put that a pretty decent drivetrain in it, but with those big headers on it. And I told one of the officials, I said, when I blow the horns off of it and the bumper's locked into the front of my pulley protector and my radiator guard, I said, let me know, because then I'm going to start sending it, because then it'll actually have a little bit of strength in the nose. And he did. Like I said, it was just, I got mad dog, and I don't think I even placed, but it was a good time. So when we went to River City after that, and then I ran them up there, and it kind of just became a staple. As anytime I got those on there, most people know I'm coming to have fun. So
how tall are they exactly?
I don't know. I'd say they're probably at least 5 foot off the heads, maybe a little bit taller. I mean, our tent out there had 7 foot sides on it, and we had to lift the tent with 2 spare tires to get my car in and out. So yeah, which is usually pretty annoying. But then my teammates start to bellyache and shake their head, call me an idiot.
So do you ever have problems with like header gaskets or anything like that?
I don't run gaskets, just run RTV, high temp. Yep. Yeah. I mean, the first time I ran them, I've always ran high temp RTV. And the first time I ran them, I ran a gasket thinking it would help, and it actually hurt. They loosened up. But anytime I run, they're always either connected to each other or, like in the case out there, I actually built the header protectors, and then there's a band clamp inside of them header protectors that connects to the halo. So, I mean, those were not. I mean, they're 100% rigid. They're never going to loosen up.
So, from that, what headers did you run before? Were you like a short tip guy, a tall guy, or like where did you stand on the header spectrum?
I don't know. I always ran Schoenfelds because it's kind of like a thing. A few of my buddies always run the rusty Schoenfeld headers, and they're super thin and they have a sound to them. And I always ran flare tips on rusty Schoenfelds, and it was almost like a pride thing who had the rustier headers. But it was never. I was never loyal to anything. I had Flotex on a couple, but I would always cut the Flotex down about 1.5 feet. So I got a couple sets of Flotex I'll keep on the cars when I'm driving around the shop or working on it, because it's just stupidly loud when you have those big ones on there.
I can imagine. And do they clear shop doors when you're pulling them in, or how does that work?
Yeah, I have pretty big doors on my shop, so we're good here at home. But yeah, it's when you go to a tent or anything like that, like Cordell, my old teammate, good buddy of mine, he runs the set of just like my old set actually at River City, and he put his on his car, and he's only got 7-foot doors on his garage he builds in, and he had to take the front tires off and skid it out with the skid steer after he had his headers on.
That's awesome.
I don't know if I'd call it awesome, but it's definitely dumb.
It's interesting to say the least. So, how many big shows have you ran?
I don't know. I mean, that's tough to say big shows. I mean, I've ran, Blizzard Bash. I've ran 80s at Blizzard Bash. I've ran Capital Carnage, and I've ran Team Show at Blizzard Bash. And then I've ran Bash for Cash a couple times. Actually ran that Freedom Hall Derby that Peck put on that was $30K to win. Ran that one. And then we ran Florida that same year. Ran a couple kicker cars like Dixon shows, Turkey Derby a couple times. I don't know what you consider a big show, but some of the small shows are the hardest ones to win, in my opinion.
Yeah, why do you think that is, though?
I don't know, because there's drivers there. There's not. You go to the small shows, it's like everybody says. I mean, there's going to be drivers there you'll never see at a big show, but have more feature wins or no recognition, no Facebook, don't care about the glamour of it. They're just there to drive a car and go home. And those are the guys that, I grew up pretty close to Southern Illinois. Santel lives about an hour and 15 from me. So first car I ever overbuilt, I want to say. I don't want to consider cheated, but okay, I definitely cheated on it. And it was because of him, because, the guy was unbeatable. We were in mini cars for a lot of years and just watched him cash checks. And it's when you're young and you're a kid and you don't know the work that somebody puts into it, it's easy to be the kid in the stands booing, And so I thought after 1 year I took a beating from a couple of his cronies, and then I thought I'm going to build an absolute just loaded up tank and go beat Don. And he got a stick, and I didn't get a stick, and I think that was the only time. I was really young, and I don't even know if I really got loaded, but that was the only time I didn't get to run a show. But years later, we became pretty good friends, and I always tell him that you're the only reason I've ever built a hard car in my life.
So have you ever gotten it on with Don?
Never really beat on it that hard with him. I've been on the track with him a few times. It's got down to it a couple times, but it's, usually when I'm on the track, it was to either on Don's team or running with Don. And, I haven't ever really, I got down at one of the shows, Urban Destruction, that Brandon Dixon put on, kicker class, got down to, it was stacked. You had Roger Hickman, Shane Jones, that whole crew, Paul Petro, Jason Brodzinski, you had Don, me. There was a slew of cars from Ohio there, Nathan Brown. It was a stacked class, and I think I got down to third or fourth, and my coil wire kept popping off, and then Jason and Don worked me over pretty good, which we ran together, but it was time to get it on, and my coil wire came off, and I'll never live that one down.
So, out of all the big shows you've ran and all the big events, which one's like one of your favorites?
Man, that's tough. I mean, my favorite derby to run over everything else is River City Rampage, and that's a bone stock class. I know most people the first year we came there thought we were crazy because typically we just build hard mods, and it's refreshing, honestly. I mean, usually I'll dedicate 2 weekends. I build my car in 2 days, and then we build my brother-in-law's car the next weekend in 2 days, and that's it's kind of a challenge to start over, whereas you're not given everything. You have to create those holes and the gaps. And Toast runs an awesome show up there. He does. And I mean, there's no reason to overbuild at that show. He pushes the pace and he really rewards the mad dogs. So, I mean, obviously when we go up there, we're there to drive hard, and the families love it. It's got a really good family vibe to it. And Toast has bounce houses and stuff, and then Power Wheels derbies. And it's just an awesome thing to do with the family, because shows like Blizzard Bash, Gold Rush, I mean, shows that are 6 or 7 days long and you're running 4 days, that is super hard to tag a family along with you when you got young daughters or something, to where you can include them at all in it. Whereas River City, if you're a mad dog, you work all night. So no matter what, all of us either try for mad dog or try, if we don't get mad dog, and try to advance. But either way, we're not going to bed. We're working on somebody's cars all night. So that's why it's always fun, because 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when everybody else is shut down and in bed, I mean, our tent's lit up, and you'd be surprised. I mean, there's people that filter through there all night just to hang out, talk. I mean, if a drunk guy walks through, I'm going to give him a sledgehammer and say, "Hey, this is your job." You know what I mean? Jam some good music, and that's my favorite show to run. And I don't know, it's just something about the environment up there that's always been, ever since we started. I guess this will be our 4th or 5th year running. It's gotten to be my favorite. I look forward to it every year.
So, do you like the heavier builds or the stocker builds more?
I say I like heavy builds until I have to build one, like this Gold Rush car. I mean, I built that car in basically 3 weeks, and that was tough. I dedicated 2 weeks to it straight, just steady, and then I had to take a week off and build bumpers that I was behind on for Gold Rush, and then I finished it the week before, and that's tough. That's a lot, and I feel like I'm never any good competitive builder. I think they're their own worst critic. So, I mean, I'm looking at the car like, man, there's a loose end here. This needs buttoned up. I wish I would have had time to do that. But I enjoy the heavy builds, and that show out there, it took away a lot, but in a sense, it made you think so much more, because Blizzard Bash had just become a throw steel at it, throw weld at it. Somebody's car bends one year and they complain the next year. Well, then give them a longer hump plate so theirs doesn't do that. Well, somebody bends the horns of their car, so give them an 8x8 motor mount. Whereas me, I mean, I can remember you go to these shows like River City. I bring it up again. First year we went there in stock cars, we absolutely destroyed everything we owned. I think Cordell broke a tranny, broke a block. I broke every transmission, distributor, cradle, everything I brought with me, we broke. And we looked at each other like, this is not mod cars, like, what are we doing? We got to step back to the drawing board. So the whole next year, all we did was talk about what we're going to do to fix it, and since you have those failures, no one is there to tell you. You got to figure it out. So that's the challenge to me. And it's been great because you figure it out, not with buying parts, but with using what you're given and how you put it together, not just throwing money at it, which is kind of what the mods have turned into. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's still an unbelievable amount of talent in building a mod car, but along with that, you can pretty much get on any website now and order it or pay someone to build it and have it show up at your door.
Do you think, like, recently the amount of aftermarket derby parts support, do you think that's helped the sport or hurt it?
Oh, that's 100% can go both ways. I mean, it's great that you can just do that. I mean, I remember the old days when, the first engine cradle I ever had was an Overkill. I don't know if you've ever even heard of that, but I mean, you had Overkill and you had Triple X, you had Big Rock. I mean, I think Big Rock may have been the first to produce a full cradle, like actual full cradle, it had to be them and Ski at the same time. But I mean, those parts were hard, and to get shipped across the country was another thing, where back then it wasn't just click. I mean, it was try to figure out who the guy was on WeCrash.com and then try to get his phone number and see if he would build you a cradle. And it was, well, I'm just going to build my own, and I mean, I built my own distributor protectors, built my own gas pedal shifters, built all that stuff. And I mean, so it has helped a ton as far as these kids getting into it, and just with ease. If you need something, you can click and it's there in a couple days. But I think it also takes a lot away from the trial and error and the actual learning on how to build a car and work with what you got. Because I mean, it's like anything else. I mean, I think these how-to videos, these TikToks and all that stuff, it's cool and all, but I mean, I always just sit there and wonder, it's like, are we doing the right thing? It's like when you have kids, and I mean, I have 2 daughters, so I can look at things I do for them or buy them. They didn't ask me to even get them something, but I just get it for them. And I'm thinking to myself, man, is this really the right thing to do? Because these kids nowadays, well, heck, you're a kid, but I'm just saying, if you look at the opportunity, someone like your age, you have, like what are you, 17 or 18?
17.
So at 17, I have a picture on the wall over there of me running my first car. It was the summer before my senior year. I ran a Ford Fiesta. And I mean, I think I had some bumpers off of like a freaking Ford Maverick on it or something, and some snow tires, and me and my brother-in-law, I borrowed a trailer, and we took his 69 GMC to the county fair and pulled it. And I'm pretty sure I got knocked out in that car. But, it was awesome. And for the first few years, it was just whatever you can scrounge up and do. And you look back on how much fun that truly was. And don't get me wrong, like, look at the opportunity you have in front of you as a driver in the position you are. Growing up around Demolition Derby, having the parts and stuff at your fingertips. But I mean, I can tell from talking to you that it hasn't ruined your mentality on derbying. I mean, you're still going to put in the work, because you can have all those parts, and if you're not willing to put in the work, you're still going to suck. You know what I mean? No one can do it for you. I mean, anybody can buy the stuff. You can buy the stuff, but I mean, I don't have a ton of money in my stuff. People may think the opposite, but I don't, and I take pride in that. To me, it's still, I can build a lot of what I run and still compete on a national level is more prideful to me than buying it.
I completely agree with that. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, growing up, like we had some money, but like, to be honest with you, back when the full cradles and all that stuff were coming out, like, my dad never had a ski. He had an old Big Rock that literally one winter, I remember, I don't know why I remember this. I remember going out to the shop, and he'd just be rebuilding this whole Big Rock, because he was the first runner around here locally to run stick shifts and all that stuff. So he had to make everything for all that stuff.
Yeah, everything's different there.
Like, even now, like, he's running this this summit show around here, and he's basically built the entire transmission from the ground up, which, to be honest with you, until like maybe, I don't know, 3 years ago, the first ever part I bought was an aftermarket shifter after I couldn't make another one because it was welded to the center bar in my first youth car. Like, we never really bought parts until like basically became easier to buy it than it was to build it.
Yeah, I agree.
Which,
yeah, I made my first cable shifter out of a Mustang shifter, and ground the detents and stuff out of it, and got it to where I could have basically a park lockout, hit first reverse. And I remember talking to Derek Drake about it, Double D power steering, and a lot of people probably don't even know, but I want to say Derek was probably one of the first ones to make a cable shifter that I seen advertised. I think it was probably, I don't know when it was. It was early Spring Explosion in Champaign. I've always got along with Derek really well, super good guy. And we were talking, and he's like, I'll show you this prototype I got. And I still have a few of them around here. They were sandwich type cable shifters. And I think we probably, between me and the group of local guys, probably bought more than anybody he had. And I guess it was probably 2 years ago at River City, I seen Derek, and I told him, hey, look, and my brother-in-law still had one of his shifters in his car, totally different than any other design you'd see. And you can spot it from a mile away. But yeah, that was probably the first thing I actually ever bought, was probably a cable shifter.
Like even so, the second ever big car setup we had was my youth setup. He basically made everything from it because I got out of W body, so we had he made the pedal setup for the W body, so we just put that in the big car. I should take the shifter comment back. That was, I guess, the first part was a gas tank. I think I could be wrong though. Which
Yeah.
it's crazy to see. Like you go walk around like the Bash or Blizzard Bash in the vendor halls, everybody's selling the same part.
Yeah. Yep.
Which
I mean, you can only reinvent the wheel so many times. I mean, you'd be surprised how many times people send me a message, a link on Facebook, or a picture on Facebook that says, look, this guy copied your bumper. And I'm like, well, I mean, there's only so many ways to do it. I mean, I have my opinions on that. I've never copied anything in my life, and I wouldn't ever try to sell anything that was copied whatsoever. But I mean, with all the free files out there now, and everything seems to get a little bit closer to mine. And I mean, I totally 100% respect anybody that wants to build their own stuff. I tell everyone that. I mean, I've probably steered more people away from buying my bumpers than I have to them, because I tell them, like, I respect the heck out of somebody that wants to build their own. And when I say build it, I don't mean get a free file, get your neighbor who has a plasma and your buddy that has a Harbor Freight welder. I mean, like, build it yourself. Get a piece of plate, cut some cardboard out, hot glue it together, figure it out, and then transfer that and build it. And I've had so many people that built their own and then came to me and they're like, I'll never build my own again because the amount of work it took, I'll just buy yours. You know what I mean? But I mean, I totally respect anybody building their own stuff. And there's a lot of guys that do it, and it's great. That's what started the sport.
Which do you think that characteristic of why not just buy it? Do you think that's going to hurt it in the long run or help it?
I mean, it can only go so far. I mean, you look at what some of these websites and vendors have turned into. I mean, it's insane. You never would have thought it in a million years. You know what I mean? What they have turned into. And it's always going to help because there's always a new kid who wants to derby in a small town who needs a shifter and a gas pedal. And there's only so many ways to make a shifter and a gas pedal. And I think I would go out of my way to make mine different than anyone else's. But I mean, some people don't have that mentality. Some people, a dollar's a dollar. You know what I mean? And they're gonna. I mean, I've had people that literally bought my bumper and took it and sent it places to try to have it copied. You know what I mean? And that to me, it's like, I don't know. I'm not that guy. Like I said, I don't want to talk down on anybody, but that to me is, you got to take some kind of pride and self-worth in what you build. And if you have no creativity, ingenuity, no blood, sweat, and tears, because I mean, doing it like mine, I mean, I cut it all out by hand on a plasma, ground every single piece, put it together, weld it together, buff it down, and back in the day, these bumpers had to have skins on them. Everyone had to have a New Yorker skin, and it had to have New Yorker backing. I mean, I was actually cleaning up behind my shop the other day, and I had a skid of, like, I don't know, about 40 New Yorker bumper backings that were still on a pallet. And I've scrapped 2 Crown Vic bodies full of New Yorker backings. I've cut up roughly 80 to 90 Chrysler New Yorker bumpers for the skin and the backing part. And the rest of them, I mean, like I said, I've scrapped probably half of them. And then I thought, well, I better start keeping these. But, you know, that was a lot, because to take that factory New Yorker bumper apart, clean the back of the chrome, all the gussets, all the brackets, and then put that on my bumper. I mean, in literally, I mean, I would sit there and count. It was terrible, but it was over 1,000 swings with a 2-pound blacksmith hammer per bumper to put a skin on. And people are like, well, you counted? And I'm like, well, you ain't got nothing else to do. You're sitting there staring at the thing swinging a hammer. And then after I got the chrome on it, then I would air hammer completely down with a smoothing bit. And that, all the first bumpers that came out, they were all chrome skinned, and then when more and more people started building what they considered a fabricated bumper, it got to be, well, why does it have to have a skin? And then it does, then it doesn't. And you want to talk about growing pains, because someone would go somewhere with your product and be like, well, it's got to have a skin, which is 100% pointless, because it does nothing. It does nothing for that bumper. But it was just part of it, the way that they kind of policed it, because if not, it was somebody would come with a 20-inch point and say it's a New Yorker replica, where Is now I think it's become standardized where what a New Yorker replica is. Now I think there's still a lot of New Yorker replicas that pop up that are nowhere close to a New Yorker bumper, because if the point of that bumper goes from the front point to the back of the backing, it's not a replica, it's a knife, and those bumpers are dangerous. And I mean, I see them all the time, and I think to myself, of all the promoters that tried to outlaw my product, and now the things that get in on a regular basis, it's just like, it makes my head hurt, but you just got to turn your phone off and get back to work.
Yeah, that's pretty much Derby Facebook as a whole. Just turn your phone off and get back to work. Ay, ay, ay.
That's all you can do. And I mean, there's a couple young guys in the sport that I've gotten pretty close with, and they're hardworking dudes. And I've always told them, I said, for one, don't send pictures of your builds to anybody, because when you send it to somebody, they're going to say, don't show this to anybody. And then that guy sends it to his buddy and says, don't show this to anybody. And I said, just don't talk on Facebook. Don't do it. Don't just show up. Don't post pictures of your car. Show up to the Derby, go there, win, lose, shake hands, just try to be a sport no matter what, go home and get better, period. Just go back in the shop. And it's tough because you see so many things on Facebook, and it's like, I bet it's been 1,000 times in my adult life I've typed an entire paragraph, looked at it, stomped around, and then deleted it and went back to work, because generally it's not worth it. It's just bad on everything. And besides the fact that when you're behind a keyboard, you can mean one thing and it's misconstrued completely. So you're better off to just stay off of that kind of stuff and just stay working.
That is the best way I've ever heard that put in my entire life. I forget which. I think it was one of the shows this year. It was something, and it was just I got on Facebook the next day, just scrolling, and it's just like, you've got to be kidding me. But
I get it.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I sent the message I typed out, and it did. I don't know why I did it. It took like 3 hours, and it was just a whole thread of just a bunch of nonsense.
And that's what it turns into. And before you know it, people get their feelings hurt or things get misconstrued, And at the end of the day, we all love this sport. But, I can't think of how many times I've left a show and there's somebody posted a picture of your car, said you're a sandbagger, said you're a cheater, said this, said that. And it's like, you want to get on there, and it's just like, man, but it's just like what's on the back of my shirts. You're never going to be criticized by someone doing more, only by someone doing less. So, the loudest boos come from the cheapest seats, and you're always going to have that. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's so many stories that, on the national side that people don't see, and they'll never know, because the guys that are at the top are generally not talking, and they're not posting on Facebook. And, a lion doesn't have to tell you that he's a lion.
What are your thoughts on all this? The stuff I do mainly, and like everybody on TikTok making all these Derby videos and all this stuff like that. What are your thoughts on all that?
I mean, like I said, I know you asked me to do this before any of it, and I kind of was hesitant. I told you that,
Oh yeah.
And I watched that first week. Most of the time I don't watch. What I'll do is when I'm welding, I'll just have my Bluetooth speaker on. The next day after you post it, I'll listen. I think the only one I watched live was Santel's, because I knew it was probably going to be a treat, because most people don't really know Don, but he's definitely got a sense of humor. And unless you really know him, you don't really know who Don is, And I thought, yeah, this is going to be good. And then about his 10th wardrobe change in, I was laughing pretty hard sitting on my couch watching him. As soon as I ran my mouth on there and said, Bob Whitaker paid advertisement, he rips his shirt off and he's got one of mine on. And I'm like, well, now this is why you don't comment on Facebook right here. Not insert foot in mouth,
Oh, that's awesome.
But I think it's good, because in all reality, there's a lot of guys out your way out east that know nothing about Don Santel. You may know that he's won Medal Mayhem 15 times or whatever it is, but, you don't know him whatsoever. In the same way with anyone, people from out west, people from out east, Pete, whoever it is, you get a certain, vibe, or you get people build an opinion off of somebody by what they see on We Crash TV or Derby Nation TV or whatever it is. And they see them at these shows, and I've had so many people. We were on River City and get down to the end, and Bob Whitaker's always there in the end, and it's usually been Bob in the top 3 or 5, and I'm there with him, and everybody's like, "Why don't you just junk that guy?" Because we're junking as many cars as we can. We go there to drive hard, and I say, I mean, Bob's my friend. I mean, you don't really know Bob because all you know of Bob is he's good. So it's easy to hate the guy that's good, but usually the guy on top of the mountain didn't fall there, if you know what I mean.
Which do you think that derbying specifically puts the target on the guy that's good like negatively more than positively?
Yeah, I mean it does because I ran into somebody last weekend that said the same thing. Like, man, couldn't wait to get on the track with Bob because I was going to absolutely junk him, and I junked myself in the heat, and I needed parts, and Bob didn't know me from anyone, and he was walking over giving me ball joints, and that was the end of it. Like, we never talked. I don't know him, but the guy, he's like, how can I go out there and junk this guy now when he's the only one that even offered help? He doesn't know me. It's like most of these guys are good people, and with just a passion for it. And like I said, it's tough because when you're good, it's always going to draw a certain amount of hate. I don't even want to consider myself good. I mean, I enjoy building the cars as much as I do driving them, and every now and then, a guy will get a good performance in there. But I mean, we're all doing it to win. I'm not going to say I think I'm terrible because just like that thing came up with Don, I can remember on the track at 17 Blizzard Bash, we got out of the cars. I got my stick broke. I had a broken output on my steering box. Don was the last one running for us, and I got out, and I looked at him, and I said, "You can't win them all." And he came across the track and looked at me, and he said, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life." He said, "Whoever told you can't win them all is a moron. That's terrible advice. You can win them all. Dumbest thing I've ever heard." And I kind of looked at him and shook my head, and I was like, okay. And I've never said that again after that. But
well, I guess technically you can win them. Like I don't say the exact same thing Don says, but every time like I get like it's one of them, it's one of them nights, I'm like, well, I haven't figured it out yet. There's a way, I just haven't figured it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you're gonna lose a lot, and the better you get when you go to a show. I mean, I've ran a lot of somewhat local shows or hard car shows. You go to the Turkey Derby, and I'm in a car that was told afterwards I could have ran limited well with, but instead I'm with the 5-foot cars. And you get down with a group like the Ohio crew or Indiana crew. You got Shane Jones, Roger Hickman, all those guys. I mean, hard cars, super hard cars. They have stuff off their front bumpers all the way down to the ground. You can't break their steering. You can't hurt these cars. And I'm in a literal bash for cash car with 4 patch plates on it. And it's going to be hard to win that. But you drive it as good as you can. You shake their hand afterwards, and you move on. You're the one that chose to run there, so you can't be mad at anyone else.
I had the same experience at Turkey Derby. I took basically a pro stock car with kickers in it.
Yeah.
It was the heat was terrible. The heat was insane because the track was dry. Luckily, it rained like monsoon for 3 nights, so the feature wasn't terrible.
Yes, sir.
But it was same thing happened. You went out there. I think I lost steering or something. I don't remember what happened exactly, but it just basically ran out of luck.
Absolutely. And there's a certain bit of that in everything. I always used to put a scripture on my car. It was Ecclesiastes 9:11, and it ended with time and chance will happen to them all, because you have to be there and you have to put yourself in a winning situation. I won't cut a single corner on my car. I'm going to build my car to the best of my ability and do everything I can, not cut a corner to be there in the end. But there's always that chance of just something, like I broke an input in our second heat out there at Gold Rush. I haven't broken input on the steering box in I don't know, 6, 7 years probably, and twisted the input off. And I thought to myself, of all times, this could happen. Here I am with a perfectly straight car looking around. Teammates had some bad luck. Ryan actually stripped a ring and pinion in a 40 spline rear end, stripped a ring and pinion. Dave was stuck. Mason got cleared, and when he did, it locked his fan up with his front clip and it wouldn't crank. So he's done. And I'm here with no steering thinking to myself, Oh, I'm sitting there just God, just give me steering right now. Let me derby this car. But that's the way it is, and you got to get out and shake those hands and move on. And it's just that's all part of it. If it was a guarantee, why would any of us do it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, if it yeah, like this at Deadman this year, I was running behind on the car, and I don't know why I thought about it the week before, but I forgot to write it down. Steering stops. I told myself I got to put them on. I got so busy because it was around that time. You're rushing, everything's
Yeah,
behind. I forgot to put them on. Go out into the feature. Car's has a few dents in the door. Everything's perfect. One wrong move, it snapped the solid tie rod in half, and there we
yeah.
sat looking silly.
Oh yeah,
Which,
there's been lots of nights where I'm literally in bed about to sleep or whatever, and something hits me, and I'll get up, walk to my kitchen, write something down. My wife's like, "What you doing?" I'm like, "I forgot something that I need to look at tomorrow on my car," and she's like, "You're nuts." And I'm like, yeah, I probably am, but that's just the way it goes. There's no way you can take out or mitigate every problem you could run into, but if you don't do your best at it, like most of these people who have bad luck is you're creating your own luck, you know what I mean, with just cut corners, or like you said, you knew better than not having those steering stops, but it slipped your mind, and I bet you won't forget again.
no, not at
Yeah.
all. So do you think, what is your thoughts on luck? Is it real or do you think you create it?
Oh, I mean, you make your own luck to a certain extent, absolutely, but at the end of the day, it has to just line up, you know what I mean, like, you could drive the same feature over 10 different times and you're going to have a different outcome each time. You know what I mean? Because one move changes the outcome of everything. And if you decided to pull forward instead of back up one time, it changes the outcome. There's obviously luck involved in it, but at the end of the day, I mean, you're still in control of a machine. You know what I mean? So, I mean, you may get lucky on some things. Like I got lucky that my transmission didn't pump all the fluid out and I went 45 minutes. But at the end of the day, it's not luck. It's just the amount of fluid that was in it was enough. And in my head, I'm like, man, that was lucky. But in all reality, it's just a measurement of fluid and there was enough in there to make it. So, I mean, I guess, and that's a hard one to answer, but there really is no such thing as luck. And then on the other hand, there is. You know what I mean? But that's a tough question right there because I don't know. You could talk about that forever.
So, how, when speaking of your trans, when it went 45 minutes, did it burn up after that, or is it like what's
No, it was still pulling fine. Like I said, at the end of the heat, it was still pulling fine. And apparently, obviously, if it ran, so a 350 will go lower on fluid than a 400 will. And like I said, obviously there was enough in there to get it done. And I haven't drove the car since I got home from Rapid City and didn't even unload the trailer. I had to build 10 bumpers in between the Monday morning of Rapid City and leaving Friday morning for Blizzard Bash. So I built 10 bumpers that week to take the Blizzard Bash and then unloaded after that next week. And I just unloaded it with the skid and pushed it in the shop, and it hasn't moved since.
so? What are your plans for running coming up, if you don't mind?
I don't have a ton, like the past few years, honestly, I've only ran one derby, River City Rampage, and got talked into running this and out there in South Dakota. And I mean, honestly, I want to go where the competition is. Like I said, everybody's got a different outlook on that, but you 100% are only as good as your best competition. And if you are just going around shooting fish in a barrel, like you said, it's what did Don say? It's easy to be a big fish in a little pond, but you got to be a shark in the ocean, something like that. I probably
Yep.
screwed it up, but he's right. I wanted in going out there. I mean, it was pretty plain to see there was a pretty good amount of competition out there. Like I said, I mean, I would say 10 national Blizzard Bash teams left Blizzard Bash and went out there, and knowing every single one of them, it makes for good and bad. It's great to conversate and hang out all weekend, but you're beating on your buddies. But at the end of the day, we're all out there to derby and stuff. But I mean, as far as this year goes, I'm signed up for a 2-man bone stock at Spring Explosion. Me and Cordell Hansen are on a team for that. And then 2 weeks later, I got River City Rampage, which is going to be pretty tight. But and I don't know, I might run some stuff this summer, a couple shows. I know Sam's got some shows up there that he took over, some county fairs and some 2-man shows up in Iowa area. And Cordell's been trying to get me to come up there for years. And now I got this car just sitting here, and I don't know, may do a little summer tour and just have some fun.
Fun. So, since you've ran Blizzard Bash multiple times, you've ran Gold Rush. What's better, Gold Rush or Blizzard Bash?
That's a tough one to just have a blanket statement of what's better. I mean, I'm going to go where I think I'm treated fairly the most, you know what I mean? So I've always been treated fair by Sam, and I'm not going to say I haven't by Tim. I mean, we've bumped heads, but there's some people on Tim's team that I'm not going to say I don't get along with. I try to get along with everybody and be respectful no matter what, but there's some people that I feel may have a little bias towards me, and that's tough because, you know, we're all trying to build the best car we can, and all you can expect to go to a derby is a fair tech. That's it. And I'm not saying, you know, you shouldn't look at my car for any longer than the next, because we all know if you build a nice car, it's going to get looked at harder. You do it to yourself. You build an ugly car, it goes right through. You build a nice car, it's going to get looked at harder. I mean, we do it to ourselves. But as far as which show I like better, I like the format of Gold Rush because it's one-on-one to the end. Blizzard Bash is no more than politics. I mean, that's why when we went in the B main at Gold Rush, everybody's like, what are you going to do? Who are we going to run with? And I said, I don't want to talk to anybody. I want to go derby because at the end of the day, we came here to not politic. So let's just go derby because Blizzard Bash is a snake pit of politics before that feature. And there's only one winner. So at the end of the day, everybody that didn't win is mad because they got out politicked. Somebody double crossed them. And I've never left Blizzard Bash without an unsettling feeling of, at the end of the day, everybody's making deals, and I hate it because you just want to go out there and you want to derby your car. And like you said, if one thing changes and you may make a deal with somebody and you get out there on the track and things change on the track, you've made plans before, I'm sure. And then once you get on the track, everything changes. I mean, we had no alliances per se at Rapid City going into the feature. And everybody on my team included were like, what are we going to do? And I said, I'm just going to start hitting the first team that hits my teammate, and turns out, we end up kind of there in the end running down with like PJ Schnarr's team. We didn't discuss that before. We never said, hey, it's me and you till the end. It just kind of fell that way. And I mean, we like I said, once again, know all those guys. Knowing PJ forever, he buys a ton of my bumpers, but didn't have a plan beforehand that we're going to go run with them. It just kind of fell that way. And I feel like that's the way it happens a lot of times. But in the same token, you'll have guys out there on the track then that don't want to shake your hands afterwards because they thought you were tighter with them than so-and-so. And I hate that. That's why that's the worst part about a team show completely is one team wins and the others all go home upset. But it's to just say which was my favorite. I enjoyed Rapid City. I would suck to be in the loser's side, but I mean, we lost. No one else lost other than us, so you just take what you can do. And it felt great to have a good performance in the B main because, I felt like, man, it's been a tough week. And, it's easy to get down on yourself when you perform bad and kind of woe is me and mope around. And honestly, I ran into Mark Elliott, who, is probably the best motivational speaker you'll ever meet. And I've known Mark for a lot of years. Got to know him teching down at Brandon Dixon's shows, and we got along really well. And Mark came down the day before our third run, I guess. I don't even know when it was, but that's when I had to change the transmission. And Mark came down and asked me what I had to do, and I was not in a good place. As you're trying to, like I said, keep an optimistic mentality about it. And had a good long talk with Mark. And after that, I was pretty focused after the weekend. But it's great to be able to surround yourself with people like that. To me, that's what Demolition Derby is. And every time I go somewhere, I you make best friends from all over the country, and it's because of Demolition Derby. And to just go there, hang out with those people, but try to surround yourself with people that want to see you win just as much as they want to win, because the group we go to River City, I mean, maybe 5 of us in our tent, and all of us know if it gets down to that 5, I mean, me and Cordell talk about it just about every day. And my wife's like, you idiots, would you just quit talking about that? It's like that's all we hear. My 10-year-old daughter tells me, would you quit talking about that? And I'm like, if it gets down to me and Cordell, and we're meeting in the middle of the track with all we got, full floorboard, and that's going to be the way it ends. We're going to see who's got what. And I mean, we're best friends, So to me, any more the older I get, sure, I want to win, but life's too short to not enjoy it either.
So you brought up a very interesting point with the politics. Do you think politics has negatively affected derbying or positively affected it?
100% negative. I mean, that's the way I feel about it, because no matter what, to truly politic, you have to make deals with more than one person. And guess what you can't do? You can't run with more than one person. Sure, you can pretend to or something like that, but if you make a deal with, say there's 8 teams in a Blizzard Bash feature, and you make a deal with 4 of those teams, you get first place. One of the teams you made a deal with gets second. You can look at them and say, man, we finished 1 and 2. We did it. The other 3 are not going to be happy. So, I mean, to me, politics ruins it, and it's made it tough, because especially the more big shows you go to, the more people you know. So the more people you know, the more people think, hey, I know this guy or that person. I'm going to run down with them. And at the end of the day, you can't run down with everybody. Someone's got to win. Somebody's got to lose. And the politics, I mean, there are some great people out there that, I mean, there was a few people in that feature at Rapid City that, I mean, one of them, I cleared his front clip off, and I mean, he was in the tent next to me, and we got out after the Derby, and he came up and hugged me. He goes, man, I've always wanted to go headlight to headlight with you. We've never been on the track together. We ran Blizzard Bash against each other, but never against each other in the heats or anything. And it's the Bernsteins from North Dakota, Team Chaos, great guys. And I've sold them a lot of bumpers, but I mean, I can remember out there in the feet or the B main of South Dakota, after one of them took a shot on me and they red flagged it, he looked over at me and he was doing this with his hands, smiling ear to ear, like, let's get it on. And I was grinning right there with him, and we had a blast. And sure, I came out on top that time, but just as easily next time he could. And I hope I can have the same level of respect to get out and hug him and congratulate him.
I completely agree. The one thing I hate about politics is, like, I try to run shows where I think politics isn't going to be there. Like, prime example, King of Ohio, we get rid of politics. So
Yeah.
I spend every penny we got to go run King of Ohio, see what we can do. The heats, just like Blizzard Bash, no politics. Feature, I walk down the line to see what deals everybody's making. Yeah, there was a lot of politics going on there, and like,
yeah. And once again, like Don said about that, there's 3 people in the heat, so there's always an odd man out. You know what I mean? And like anyone else knows, just like Don told you, if I know you and I don't know the other guy, what are we going to do?
We're going after the other guy.
Exactly. Same thing you told Don. I don't have to tell you that. But and you get in the feature and it becomes politics. And, I mean, the only way you can sort of take politics out of that, I mean, like I said, going back to why we run River City, he wants mad dogs more than he wants winners. And when you don't drive, he paints your car pink. And when he paints your car pink, your shot clock goes from 60 seconds to 30 seconds. And somebody is dedicated to you. You will perform, and it's like my kids will be the first ones to tell me, man, that Derby was boring. Man, you suck, Dad. Like, why didn't you drive harder? But 2 8 and 10-year-old girls can go to this demolition derby and watch 10 heats and not be bored. And I mean, the average heat there lasts like 10 minutes, if that, and they're pulling mad dogs the way he does it. He's going to pull 3 cars are coming out of that, whether it's a mad dog in the top 2 or whether it's 3 mad dogs. 3 cars are coming out, so, and mad dogs get to work all night. And, he wants a driver that's putting on a show to win. And the next year after you get Mad Dog, your entry's paid for the following year. He $200 entry, and he gives you a free entry the following year if you're Mad Dog out of your heat. I mean, lots of them. 12 or 15 people get free entry to that show. That's a lot of money out of his pocket just for driving your car hard.
Which, why do you think the whole sandbagging thing has gotten a lot worse in most recent years?
It hasn't. I mean, I can remember going to 2010 Metal Mayhem where you had your instigators in the heat that went out and made 3 hits, horned their car, everybody cheered, they were junk, and then the derby lasted 2 more hours. It wasn't. It hasn't gotten any worse. It's just on TV now.
Which,
It's the same shows were the same way. I mean, Metal Mayhem, but there were so many shows that weren't on that scale that still went hour and a half, 2 hours. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think the year that I won Bash Kicker class, I mean, I think it was a couple-hour feature in those hard cars, and there is something to be said about it is fun to be in that car in a chess match. Don't screw up. Know the opponent's move next, but it is not fun to watch. It's a blast to drive. I mean, I know you're a mini car guy, but it's the same way I've always said about mini cars. They're a blast to run, but they're terrible to watch. And I still, to this day, have the most fun in a freaking 3-hour built W body out of anything, I think.
So what do you like more, mini cars or big cars?
Oh, obviously big cars, but I mean, just because of the build aspect. But if you give me a W body that runs good, I'm gonna put a pointy on it and run it. I don't care if it's full size, mini car, whatever.
So how many mini cars have you ran?
Man, a lot. Back in the day, we ran a lot of mini cars. Thunder Valley Promotions was big in Southern Illinois, and it seems like they had a derby every weekend. I mean, so back in the 2008, 9 era, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, we'd run, easily 10 derbies just a summer, you know what I mean? And it was almost every weekend you were going with a group of people, and it was a blast. Ran a lot of mini cars. And then we got into the rear wheel drives, your AMCs, and I had rear wheel drive GM set up, and actually had retrofitted a fuel injected a throttle body 4.3, and I ran that throttle body 4.3 for a lot of years, and built everything, and then kind of let my wife's cousins borrow it for the drivetrain they ran in their Pacers, and we built a lot of that stuff because those were, after you build a Pacer, you look at yourself and you think, why am I not just building full-size cars? It would have been a lot easier.
I know the exact feeling.
Yep. And two, I'm not going to say that the competition level's not there, because nowadays there's a lot more competition in the minis. But back in the day, I mean, how much lunch money do you want to steal from a kid? You know what I mean? You get to a point where you're just going there, you're beating on these poor kids. It's their first derby, and there's no pride in that. You know what I mean? So if you want to step up your competition level, you gotta, in my opinion, you get back then, especially now what the mini cars have gotten to be. I mean, it's intense. There's a lot of guys driving minis that can flat drive a car, but back then it was your beginner class, your true beginner class, because there was no such thing as a youth class. You just had mini cars.
Yeah. So this year at the Bash, when I won Smash at Minis, one thing I will say, to be honest with you, that was one of those shows I don't know how I won. I did not expect to win at all. Just went there to have fun. I was running the team class anyways. I just kind of did this as fun. But I went out there with basically no politics. For that show this year at least, I feel like politics were not there, and it was just competitive derbying. It went to the team class. It's like, well, we're working with this guy, we're doing this with this guy, and I'm like, dude, this is dumb. I can't don't get me wrong. I can sandbag in the corner for 3 hours if I have to, but even I was getting bored. That's how bad it was. Which do you think the drivers need for competition level has went down recently, and with the politics and all that stuff?
I don't know, man. It's tough to say. Everybody's different. Like I said, I mean, I want to go where the competition is, but it's pretty obvious to see everybody doesn't feel that way. You know what I mean? Some people would rather just win, and there's always an avenue you can take to just win. If just winning, but then again, to me, it's like you got to look and, you got to look at who you're going against, your competition level, and I've made some of the best friends I have competing against them. But I mean, like I said, iron sharpens iron, and you got to be there against. You got to beat the best to be the best. Just like that's been said 1,000 times, And it's like, I don't know. It's if you're going to these national shows, there's no lack for competition, And like you said, though, as far as how it happened to you at Bash, I kind of feel like the year I won Bash kicker class was kind of the same way. I mean, I had a couple guys I was running down with. I was running down with Logan Duvall and Nathan Brown, and those two guys, top-notch drivers, builders, and pretty tight with those guys. And it got down to I don't want to say bad luck on their part. They both got out, and I can remember before the Derby, I was talking to Nick King of all people. You can't get a word in when Nick's talking, and I said, Nick, who's going to win the feature? And he named off like 10 people. And I was like, yep, yeah. And we drove off on the golf cart, and my wife was like, does that upset you that he didn't say you? And I said, no, it makes me smile because I'm not on anybody's radar, and that's a good place to be because, I mean, I came by myself from Missouri out to Ohio, and I can remember being there the year before in 16, like, woof, this is clicky out here, and this is hard cars, and this is be a tough one. And I'm thinking, I don't know if this is my home, I don't know if I need to run out here. And then the next year building for Freedom Hall, and that's when they had what they called their unified kicker rules, and it was the wicked derbies, it was PEX derbies, it was Smash It. They all used the same kicker rules. Now, was their interpretation different? Absolutely, but they were supposed to be a unified rule.
So, speaking of unified rule sets, do you think that's ever going to become like a mainstream thing, like everybody's trying to make it?
Yeah, it could be on a national level, but that's it. It'll never be for the county fairs. But when you have what like Sam's tried to do with these wheelman qualifiers and stuff, I mean, I think it would if you're going to run something like that, it needs to be. But on that same token, it'll never be unified if the same people aren't looking at all those cars. The same people at each show. You can't have the same rules in different techs because I don't know how many times I've been in a national tech line where I read that rule and I build my car and the tech says that's not right. And I said, well, that's black and white. Pretend I live under a rock and I don't have anything other than the black and white of the rules. That's how my car is built. Well, you know what we meant. Well, I don't care what you meant. I just care about what you wrote. You know what I mean? So, and I mean, a perfect example of that, which I can brag on Russ Clark, when Russ was still around, because we ran Freedom Hall, and I had kickers that went from the point of my bumper to my core support spacers. And they came up to a ramp, and I think there was just me and Jason Brodzinski that had them like that. And I can remember Russ coming up to me, and he said, I hate those things. And I was like, yeah, unified rules. And he kind of shook his head and walked off. And I think it was a few weeks later or months later, whatever it was, I called Russ to talk about running Bash for Cash. And he said, you're going to have to cut those if you come. And I said, I'll just stay home then. And he's like, what do you mean? And I said, well, I mean, they're unified rules. And what I did follows exactly how the rule is written. And he said, well, we want them to be vertical. And I said, yeah, but it doesn't say that. And he said, well, that's fine. And we got off the phone, and about 10 minutes later, he called me back, and he's like, man, I hate him. I hate him. He's like, but you got to run that car just like it is. And I said, well, I appreciate that, and I respect the heck out of it because, I mean, that's the right call to make in my opinion, and it takes a lot, especially for a promoter sometimes, to realize, hey, maybe my opinion of things isn't exactly how things are written. And, that's why Blizzard Bash used to be so great, in my opinion, was because sure, there's gray areas, but when you build something, you do it, and they look at you when you get there and they say, yeah, like, wow, man, we left a hole in those rules and we will fix it next year, but this year it gets to run. Whereas lately it turned into, that's not how I would do it, so you can't do it that way either. And, it's not the tech's job to tell you how to build your car. It's to see if the way you built it fits the way their rules are written.
So, do you think that gets a different, do you think the inspections get a different take based on how well the car looks and how well it's
absolutely
built?
I mean, everybody knows that, you know what I mean? If if I was wired a little bit different and not so crazy, I would just bring an ugly car everywhere I go. But like you said, I don't know what it is, but probably something that isn't clicking right in my brain that doesn't let me do that. But, it's got to be one extreme or the other. It's got to be like South Dakota was, or it's got to be bone stock, close the trunk, and leave the key hanging out of it. It's one or the other.
I know exactly what you're saying. Why do you think that is, though? Why do you think you're such a perfectionist when it comes to how your craft, basically?
I don't know. I think that's with everything in life, though. You know what I mean? You have that drive. It's in you no matter what. If you're going to do it, I grew up without it. My dad wasn't around when I grew up, and I just had my grandpa, and he was like my dad. And it was, everything you do. I can remember when I was young, it was, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. And I think it's, he comes up here. He's still alive. He's about to turn 88 right now. And he comes up here about 4 times a day to my shop and looks around and tells me my welds are ugly and tells me he could do better. And I think to myself, that right there, and he's the one, you get somebody like that just instills that drive in you, that if you're going to do it right. And if, I think everybody's capable of doing it. It's just how much you want to apply yourself to it. And yeah, it's like some people say, well, I wish I could do that. Well, I mean, what's stopping you,
Did your grandpa ever derby?
No, absolutely not. No, no. Like I said, nobody in my family whatsoever. When I started dating my wife, her first cousins are actually the 2 Gage brothers that ran on Team Kansas. So that was, we ran mini cars together. But I mean, they still derby now. Obviously, they haven't ran Blizzard Bash in the past couple of years, but they kind of do their thing, and I'm just kind of over here by myself. But I like it like that. But like I said, nobody really got me into it, and I definitely had a shaky start. A lot of the stuff I built was pretty rough, but you just get better each time.
So, if you could, what's your favorite derby memory?
My favorite derby memory is probably my brother-in-law winning River City Rampage. We went to River City, and me and Cordell and my brother-in-law Andy Viox, we all said, hey, me and Cordell are going to get the Mad Dog, and Andy, you're going to win this. And Andy's like, I can't do it. There's too much politics when it gets down to the end, too many big name drivers. And he's one of those guys, just a natural driver. He can be there. And I've always built his stuff for him. And like I said, I built his cars here at my shop and kind of built his rear ends, put his trans together, do all that kind of stuff, and make sure he's got everything it takes to compete, but he's still got to drive the car. And he had an accident, or his boss at work had an accident like a week before the Derby, and it was a bad accident. And he seen it happen, and he called me like a week before the Derby, and he was like, it's not going to happen. I can't go. And I told him, I said, well, what's it going to take? And he didn't think it was going to work. And my wife actually pulled my second truck and trailer with his car on it, and she took his car through tech, and he showed up the night we ran the first heat. And he ran the heat, did good in the heat, had a couple of issues, but we worked on his car. We worked on our cars all night, worked on his the entire next day when it came out of impound. And it rained a lot for the feature. And I told him, I said, it's going to help you more than hurt you. And I threw a rod out mine at like $8,000 just doing donuts like a moron. I threw a rod on my lower end, and Cordell bent a valve, I think. And Andy was out there by himself, and it got down to top 10. He's still doing good. His car looked great. And then it got down to top 5. And you're talking, it was Bob Whitaker. It was Terry Timmons. It was Chase Timmons. It was Bob's whole crew. You know what I mean? Like his go-to guys, about 5 of them, and Andy. And I'm like, man, this is not going to be good, And I told him before, I said, just stay in the middle of the track and stay straight with them. Don't let them get you sideways. And he derbied that car and got all the way down to the end. And like I said, beat him, won. A couple of them ran out of gas. He beat some of them. Either way, you won. Whether you run out of gas or not, you got beat, And he won. And I can remember when the announcer said his name, they couldn't even pronounce it. They're like, not even really sure who this guy is, And and it was awesome to see, because I've always said, there's some times where you just need a win. Like, it doesn't matter if there's bad stuff going on in life or there's just things happening around you, that some wins just mean more than anything. So honestly, my best Derby memory is watching him win that Derby.
That's awesome. So is there? It's crazy. It's awesome that your favorite memory is with someone else instead of your own. You know.
Well, I mean, like I said, I mean, yeah, it's that's kind of why I don't know. Like I said, the world nowadays it's surrounded with people that don't want to clap when other people win or do good, you know, and it's tough.
So Jason Brodinsky sent me some questions.
It's moron.
Oh God, this is gonna be good. Um,
I told him, just remember, no matter what you ask, the rabbit has the gun, so I'm the one talking, not him.
all right. So the first one was: do you think it was a dumb move parking in the back of Markley's wagon to cost the team the 2017 Blizzard Bash win?
I think what truly cost us the win was Jason not drinking enough milk because I grazed him in the door and his wrist got broke, and Don had to fill in the rest of the weekend. So that's really, honestly, probably what caused us to not win. But yeah, absolutely, it was a terrible decision. You know, Markley was coming towards me with his trunk, and I squared up with him, and I thought, well, I'm just going to square up, and I've hit a lot of wagons in the back, and I didn't anticipate ripping his roof off with my hood. You know, it kind of just blew open like a blooming onion. And the next thing I know, I'm looking through my firewall and my tires underneath me. And I'm like, man, that was dumb, you know? And yeah, terrible decision. I had 100 people send me pictures afterwards with my hood ripping his roof off. And they're like, pillar parking expert level. And I'm like, stupidest thing I've ever done. Like, I'm not going to celebrate this ignorance. But yeah, it was a dumb move by me. Yeah, I'll take full responsibility for that. But the reason we lost is because Jason's got soft bones.
So, okay, the next one is: why do they call you gay? That's his words, not mine.
They don't, just he does. And like I said, it throws a lot of people off when it's just casual conversation now. You know, I walk up and it's, hey, gay. And people look around and it's like, I guess that's just my nickname now when I'm around him, you know. And this is neat, you know. And every time I get a package, it's Gayge, you know. It's pretty neat. Yeah, yeah.
So, how are you guys so close? Like, how are you guys such good friends?
I don't know. We just got to know each other through Derby, you know. I ran 2014 Blizzard Bash is the first time I was around any of those guys. I ran Spring Explosion 2014 80s mod. I ran up there and I got to know Ryan a little bit. They were running teams up there, obviously, and then I got to know Jason more at the. He ran Capital Carnage out there in 16, and I ran with him. And then I came out in 16 and I pitted for him at Blizzard Bash, and they had some stuff on their cut sheets that were not fun cuts at all. And I looked at them like, why did you do that? That is going to be tough. And they're like, well, I don't want to torch it. And they're like, I don't want to torch it. And they're like, you want to torch it? And I'm like, I just started hanging around with these guys. And they're like, you think you can do it? And I said, well, I think I can do it. That's fine. So I cut one of their cars where it had to be cut. And then I cut the next one. And I think it kind of opened their eyes. And maybe I wasn't just a dumb kid, I guess. I don't know. And got to be friends just by that, helping them. And then 17, got invited on the Spring X team with them. And like I said, just got to be good friends with all those guys. That's the same way with Cordell Hansen, you know, get to know him through Derby and become some of your best friends. But and talk to him, not just about Derby, you know. I mean, we go up there and hang out with families together and stuff like that. Because to me, it's like everything always turns into Derby. I mean, we actually went on a vacation one time and our wives and girlfriends said every time you mention Demolition Derby, you got to put $1 in a cup. So you know what I mean? Like they get tired of hearing about it. They just want to enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, I talk to Jason pretty often yet, but it's, I knew these questions could get interesting. When I seen his post, I thought, you moron.
So the next one is: are you going back to Gold Rush?
I don't know. Like I said, I haven't decided yet. You know, there was a couple things that I left there unsettled about, and that's going to be anywhere you go. You know, when you build a hard car and a competitive car, you draw a certain level of attention to yourself. You know, and it's I've always liked the promoters that when someone comes up to them and complain about another build, they tell them, hey, cars getting tech just like yours, we're not going to go down that road. I don't like when promoters play into the complaints. You know what I mean? Because it's not, I don't know. I lose a lot of respect for somebody when they go up to a promoter and complain about your car. And we had a lot of complaints out there. And, there was things on other cars I seen that were 100% not legit. And, the talk of protest and that was brought up. And I'm 100% against it. I'll never protest another car. I don't care. I don't care if you come off the track with plate hanging out of your frame. I'm not going to protest your car. It was text just like mine. And if you give me 10 minutes alone with every car there, I will find one thing illegal on it. The same thing could be said about mine. If you give a good builder 10 minutes alone with my car, he's going to find something on it that he thinks should have been cut or handled differently by a tech. So, I mean, all you can hope for is to be treated fairly and that the promoters and the techs don't take the advice from the peanut gallery and they just do what they do. Because, Sam had mentioned on here the other day how, he listened to all the negative comments and you realize to yourself that it is just the small percentage, but it's the squeaky gear gets the grease, and once you realize that those people don't matter and your show will be better off if you quit changing the rules, quit, being harder on certain people just because they build a nice car. And everybody's not wired the same. If I go to that show and I see somebody with something that I didn't think of, I take it personally on a level that, how did I miss that? I mean, I've had many conversations for hours on the phone with all those guys, Cordell, Ryan, all of them, of did we miss anything? Is there going to be something that shows up that just wows us that we missed? And I lose sleep over thinking about that stuff. Like if it's there, I want to be the one that finds it. And when I see somebody else, I seen a few things at Gold Rush. I was like, man, what I didn't think of that. And I told the guys, awesome idea. I don't know how I missed it. Awesome idea. The last thing that crossed my mind was going to be, oh man, I got to go tell somebody about this. This is not, it's so to answer that, I went on a tangent there, but to answer it, I don't know. I don't know if I'll go back or not. That's a long ways off. I enjoyed it out there. Sam swung big. Having the tent paid for, having the free entry, that means a lot. It was 17 hours one way from my house to Gold Rush. So it may not seem like a lot, but that tent and that free entry tells me that he wants me there, because I've been to national shows that I go back to my hotel room at night and I think, why do they not want me here? And I did not have that feeling at Rapid City. I will say Sam did a great job on that. To genuinely make you feel like they want you there. So that was nice.
So, okay, that's great. So the next question is, how do you get your crease line so smooth? His words, not mine.
Jason does all my trunks. I don't even do them. I've constantly gotten crap over that from my teammates over the years. Ryan's always gave me crap about it because, they're always giving me yada, yada, this and that. And I always tell them straight lines don't win derbies, and they don't. After, just like you said before, one hit, it's ugly anyways. But I don't know. And I think there is more to it. Obviously, the lines on the trunk of my Lincoln were not just there to look cool. It had a purpose and it was supposed to lay down a certain way. And it makes less work for you after the heats, you know what I mean? So they do have a purpose, but as far as how I get them so straight, Jason's the one that taught me.
So what's it like being famous?
I'm not famous. He's an idiot. I'm not famous at all. Like I said, I'm a normal guy, just work, weld, and that's it. Not famous at all. Ski.Ink is the real famous person. What Jason's done, he's the real celebrity. Everybody asked why, he wasn't on our team out there at Rapid City because he was signed up. And I think he was in Dubai or something buying a Lamborghini. I don't even know.
So the last question I got sent by him was, why didn't you run 2019 Blizzard Bash?
Oh man, we'd have to start over and need about 6 hours for that. But I don't know.
Let's jump on into it. Well, how bad can it get?
I've never, you leave a place like that. 2019 when we ran the wagons with the backs cut off of them. Well, I say ran, but we didn't run. we cut the backs off those wagons and pretty much went against the grain on everything everybody was doing with wagons. You know what I mean? We had custom spring packs. We had bumpers on the frames, not on the bodies, because it didn't say it had to be on the body. And we cut the backs of them off. And I mean, honestly, that was the most confident I've ever been in a car going into a derby. And we knew there was going to be some flack, spring packs. Obviously, we had extras with us. You have a plan B and a plan C for everything when you go to a show like that. But it was tough. I was told by someone with pretty great authority the night before Tech that I was never going to get to run that weekend, and it always resonates with me. And I wonder why, and I wonder how they knew that. But it was tough. My car was on the lift for 3 hours, and I didn't get loaded. That's the hardest part about it. Didn't get loaded, but I could go off on just a tangent of things. But it was tough. A couple of my teammates did get loaded, and you could go back and forth forever of should they have been loaded. I don't know. I mean, in my opinion, if you got a guy willing to fix something, he should never be loaded. You make an example out of them, and if they have a skinned rail and you make them cut the entire side of the rail out, you made an example of him. If he's willing to run his car without the whole side of his rail, let him run it. You know what I mean? But there was a lot to that year, and the thing that always just gets me is, so I didn't run it in 19 with that wagon. I came home, I rolled that wagon off the trailer, and I put a tarp over it, and I didn't unhook the batteries for 2 years. That car sat there complete. It pretty much took the wind out of my sail. So on top of that is when the whole bumper skin thing was going on and yada yada. I had to reskin 9 bumpers out there that year in the parking lot. So I cut up 9 fresh New Yorker bumpers out there and put skins on bumpers. And I look back at it as like, if I was running that weekend, I wouldn't have had the chance. I wouldn't have the time to do that. And my customers wouldn't have got taken care of. So maybe it was a blessing in disguise. I don't know. But, came home, rolled that car off the trailer. And 2 years later, Ryan called me one day out of the blue, and he said, I got invited on a Blizzard Bash team. And I said, awesome, And I said, yeah, those guys talked to me last week. And he said, what do you think? And I said, it's just not for me. You know what I mean? And that same thing always, there's another Don Santel quote that always comes up to my mind there. He said, if you buy tickets to the circus and you show up and you're surrounded by clowns, who's the idiot? So I told myself I'm not going back. However you want to take that, I just put it in my head. I told my wife, the night we knew we weren't going to get to run, I said, I feel like all I do is owe you an apology, the family an apology, because it's not, these promoters and these techs make a decision out of spite or a decision just to prove a point, and they don't really realize the amount of heart, time away from our families and everything you put into this. It's not just a sport. And I told her I wouldn't run it again. So 2 years later, Ryan messaged me. It's probably 2 or 3 weeks before Blizzard Bash. He called me, and I said, come get my wagon. He's like, what do you mean? I said, just come get it. I said, I'll pull the motor and tranny out tomorrow. And I said, I'll leave that car turnkey complete other than the motor and tranny. Slide yours in, take it to Blizzard Bash. And he's like, well, I mean, what do you think? I said, I don't know. You got a better chance of running it than I did. And he went out there, and the same exact car, the same exact rules, ran 2 years later. So that one's always been tough for me. And I don't know. You can draw your own conclusions from that, but I won't sit here and make it personal with anyone or anything, but you could draw your own conclusions.
So, do you think you guys cutting the backs of them wagons off kind of made that the new cool thing to do?
I don't know. I've seen a lot of guys do it. You can't do that to a car without the supporting things that come with it. Obviously, it's like I seen a couple at Gold Rush. One was cut off, and the whole rear of the car was hinging and breaking in half really quick. It's just those cars being mod cars, gas tank protector locked in, and all the patch plates you get. We knew we had to get through the first round, and after that, we were going to be fine. And that the car is actually sitting outside right now. So after Ryan ran it at Blizzard Bash, Cordell Hansen borrowed it, and he ran it 6 or 8 times summer shows in Iowa. He brought it back to me when they told him he could no longer run the car. And then Don Santel actually came and borrowed it from me a few months back to bring out your way somewhere. I don't know. Pennsylvania somewhere, and he was told he couldn't bring it. So he brought it back. I said, hey, I need that rear end out of that car for my Gold Rush car. So he brought it back, and it's just sitting out there in the gravel outside the shop right now. But, yeah, cutting the back of them off, is it got to – if you look at those cars, it's a wagon. From the bumper on the frame to the center line of the rear end, it's a foot and a half shorter than a two-door Buick per se, or a Bubble Lincoln even, and to say those are dangerous cars, I mean, they're short in the back. Sure, they're suspension killers, but they're short. You know what I mean? That car from the center line of the axle to the end of the actual frame, not the body, is very short. You know what I mean? So obviously, after we ran those cars, after my car got to run, all the rules got changed out there, where bumper height must be maintained the whole weekend, and you cannot put the bumper on a frame anymore, yada, yada. I don't know. I haven't read Blizzard Bash rules. I just hear and see, what I can see for myself when I go there. But, yeah, 2019 was tough, but you could go, like I said, you could go on and on. But at the end of the day, like I said, you have to just – all you can do is take it. And, I mean, knowing I wasn't going to get the run, it took the wind out of my sail, absolutely. But, I mean, I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I didn't cuss anybody. That gets no one anywhere, You learn how to handle it and just support who you think is going to give you the fairest opportunity to run your car.
So, with the wagon and all your crazy builds, which one's your favorite?
I enjoyed building the wagon. Only GM car I've ever built, and I brought that in the shop. It was a Chevy body and a Buick frame, and I'm looking at the front horns like, what have I done? This is freaking terrible. Everything's different. Geometry's different. You got a hole the size of your fist on the inside of the front rail, and the more I got welding on it and the more I got laying things out, the happier I got, and the more I started smiling. And I was like, man, these things are thick. You go from a Ford to a GM and the amount of weld they'll hold, and then the way it all laid out. I built a fresh customer in just for that car, and the way we had the springs laid out and everything, it was one of those things. You were almost like a giddy kid, and you were just excited every night when you left the shop. And then so to go out there and have the wind taken out of your sail, it was tough. But I mean, I enjoyed this Rapid City build, but there were so many times I went down to the house and I was like, man, mod cars are dumb. You know what I mean? Like when you're welding and you're doing and you're, but 2-day build. I mean, honestly, like I said before, I'm not joking. I can throw an afternoon in a W body, put a pointy on the front of it, and have a lot of fun.
So how many W bodies have you ran?
I don't know. I've ran pretty many. I actually ran a freaking, I don't even know what it was. It wasn't a W body. It was something. A guy drove to my shop one day and he asked me if I wanted it. I think it was a Grand Prix last year. He said, you want this? And I said, it's a run. He said, well, I drove it here. And I said, yeah, I'll take it, And I told my buddy, Matt Neese, I said, I'm going to run that car at my hometown and we're going to put it in the full size and we're just going to go have a blast, And he's like, because I told him he owed me a ride because I rode with him one time and he about killed me. And I said, we're running with the full size cars and he's on his way here and he's like, we ain't. And I said, yeah, we are. I said, we got to do this. I didn't have a cage in it. I had a pipe behind the seat and a pointy bumper on the front, and we had a blast. The radio was on and we were jamming Bob Seger, and during a one red flag, I looked at him and I said, there's no one on this track having more fun than us. Tell me that there is, and somebody ended up parking on my hood and their 76 bumper was flush with our eyes above my roof. And he's like, oh my gosh, we're going to die. And I'm like, it was awesome. But those are the memories. You know what I mean? Like I remember that stuff as much as I do competing on these national level shows,
So would you rather take a W body against full size or go run it out at the national events?
Oh yeah. I mean, I definitely run the national events because the competition level, but like I said, then again, I mean, I'll jump in a W body and do anything, anytime. That's just fun.
So what's your favorite derby? Are you like Don when it's just the next one?
No, I mean, my favorite derby, like I said before, is River City Rampage. But I mean, back when I used to run my hometown show before I started promoting it, it was obviously that because of who's in the stands. It's your friends, it's your family, it's your boss, it's everybody, and people that don't get to see you derby all the time get to see you derby. So, but I mean, River City Rampage is my favorite overall by far. And I mean, I wish I could derby like Don does. I mean, man, that guy goes hard. Every weekend they're going somewhere next, and he lives to derby. There's no doubt about it. It's like the time and the work, the dedication it takes to be like that. I mean, like I said, second to none. I don't know how they do it sometimes. To be honest with you, it's a complete lifestyle.
Like, I be honest with you, I don't know. I chased points the 1 year. It was miserable. I don't know how Don did it for 3. Like,
Well, it's almost comical because Don 10 years ago he didn't get in a mini car, he didn't get in a minivan, and he did whatever it took. I mean, I remember him at River City in a minivan just taking a beating up there and get out, walk off the track, and he's doing it for a purpose. He's not missing the forest for the trees. He's got his eyes on the prize, and he is there to do it. No matter what it takes, he's going to do it, and even if it's running a minivan.
Have you ever ran a minivan?
Oh yeah, yeah. I used to have a minivan here that I kept a caravan here, and anytime I get a rusty Vic or anything, I'd set it against my scrap pile and I'd T-bone it at about 40 in front of my shop just for fun. And after it hung around here for about 2 or 3 years like that, I was like, man, the backs of these minivans are hard, and so I built it to take to the Turkey Derby. Actually, the year it got canceled when Don and you were talking about it the other day, the points thing. It was the final points show was a Turkey Derby, and I built a minivan for that Derby and was just going to go out there and send it. And it got canceled, and I parked it in the woods, and that was 2 or 3 years ago, I guess. And then last summer, Bill Miller had the Southern Illinois Showdown, and he's like, "You got to run a minivan." And I was like, "Man, if that thing starts, I'll run it." And I went down in the woods, and fuel pump was locked up on it, so I had to put a fuel pump in it, and it fired up. And I told them, "Yep, I'll run a minivan," and they do hit hard. And I had a blast. I got the Mad Dog, and they said go, and I pulled up against the concrete, and I hit a guy at full track, and I drove through him, and I hit the concrete harder than I hit him. And I don't even know if I knew where I was at for a minute, but it was a blast.
That's awesome. So, what's the deal with your open faced helmet? Like, because what's the deal with it?
Man, I've had it since I was literally 17. I mean, that's all. That exact helmet's the only one I've ever ran. I had a closed face that there's a couple of years there in like the heavy 5 foot kicker cars and stuff. I would take both just depending on what it was like that night. But I've always, Blizzard Bash for cash. There's been so many people that are like, "You're really gonna wear that helmet?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm wearing that helmet." And to be honest with you, everybody nowadays, is looking for a light helmet because of what it does to your neck and that. And I'm like, I've got the lightest helmet you could ever wear. I mean, I've had it forever. It's super light, and you put that orange bubble visor on it, and I said, you're stepping into a whole new realm. You know what I mean?
Have you ever not knocked your teeth or anything like that with that thing?
No, and I haven't. I'm surprised I haven't because I'm always smiling. I mean, I can remember it Bash for Cash, the year that I won. There was a big crew there from New York area, like Tom Henderson and Easy E and all those guys, and Matt Gaskin, and I didn't know any of them, and I knew that Tom Henderson won it the year before, and just a level of respect, and I thought these are the guys I'm going after, and I went after their whole crew, and I can remember I hit one of them and I ripped their lower off. I think it was Matt Gaskin. And he said, I looked up and he said, I could have killed you. I was so mad. And he said, I saw you smiling in that half face, ear to ear. And he said, how could I be mad at you? He said, you were having the time of your life. And I said, yeah, I mean, we all should be. I mean, isn't that why we do it? Like at the end of the day, you think about it, like Rapid City, you lose a heat, they come and put a microphone in your face, and it's like, oh man, this, we just lost. It's like, say something. And at the end of the day, we're out here living our best life. Even on the worst day, there's people out there that don't know where their next meal is. So to let one loss ruin your whole day, your whole week, your year, I mean, it's not going to ruin mine. I'm there to have fun, and at the end of the day, like I said, we're truly blessed to be able to do something like this.
So, what is your favorite part about derbying?
People. I mean, I'm a people person. I get to talking and rambling, and I like I said, I'll when we go somewhere like that, it's almost comical because my wife will be like, yeah, we're leaving now. We walk out in the hallway and we run into 15 people from the stairs to the seats, but it's people you don't see. You got buddies from I have friends in California, that I would have never known without Demolition Derby. Friends in North Dakota, friends in New York, Pennsylvania, Upper Peninsula, Michigan, Iowa, everywhere across the country that I can just strike up conversation with like you never left off. And I mean, the competition, obviously, anything you do, you're doing it for competition. It doesn't matter if it's truck pulls, if it's hunting, you want to kill the biggest buck. It's all about competition. We do it for competition, but my favorite part, honestly, is the people. And that's why, like I said, the older I get, I just focus on more who I surround myself with.
So, what do you do for a living exactly? Do you just build bumpers or like what? How does that go exactly?
No, I worked for a Union Pacific Railroad for like 13 years as a welder. That's all I've ever done. I got my first full-time welding job the summer after my junior year, and then I did an internship through school welding, and then full-time, and went through college. Wanted to be an engineer, and thought, man, that's not for me. I gotta work with my hands, and so got a job at the railroad when I was 20, and worked there 13 years welding, and left there around COVID time. It got real tough to work for a company like that, and then went to work for a local excavation company, a union company, and welder still. And then recently, about 3 months ago, I took the plunge to go to work for myself, and actually to go all in, have a company. Just started it. January 1st will be when it actually goes live, but it's called Excalibur Welding LLC, and I'll have a Facebook page, and I plan on trying to do a lot in the beginning because, I mean, obviously, when you have a personal page like myself or anyone, heck, you're famous. You got a page where people can follow you, this or that. But me, you get friend requests from these people that you don't really know, and it's your personal page, and it's your family and your kids, and these people may just be a fan of yours or just want to be your friend, but it's tough to accept all those requests and stuff. But there's a lot of times where if you do like what I do and you build a product, well, that person may just want a bumper and he doesn't even know how to buy one. So it'll be a lot nicer. I'll set up a business page, and once I set the business page up, it'll be able to direct people to see what I do. And obviously there's a lot more than bumpers, but I've been trying to catch up on bumpers and I'm still just covered up. But built a lot of bumpers this year and still a lot of bumpers behind, but plan on getting to the point where they're stocked, where I can focus on other things, the mobile welding side of it and everything with the truck. But like I said, I worked on a lot of heavy equipment where I was last, but doing that and then having the bumpers. But when someone wants a bumper, I can say, yeah, it can ship tomorrow. When do you want it? I can deliver it here or this or that. Because virtually every big show I go to, I'm taking bumpers with me. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's it. Just weld every single day. Just weld. That's all I've ever done. And I mean, there's times it gets monotonous, but and now going to work for myself, though, it's kind of lit a fire back under me again, because at the end of the day, when you go to work your regular 9 to 5, you're going there for a reason, support your family, but there's not that fire in you that it's all on your shoulders now. Going to work for yourself and being able to see what you've created and what you can create, and there's a lot of people that make it big and a lot of people that fail. So we'll see how it goes.
Which I want to touch back on the point you made of like the whole Facebook profile stuff and all that. This used to be my personal page, but then like I my mom well I was a very like my mom was very strict growing up. I didn't have a phone till I was like 15. So I was a weird kid in middle school. But like I think it was like a week ago, I just hit 5,000 Facebook followers and friends, which then everybody that adds you now, it just goes to a follower, which it's really weird to think about because I'm still getting tagged on this account by all like the family photos, the Christmas photos, and all stuff like that. I didn't even think of that till you brought that up. It's really weird to think about.
It is, and it's tough because I mean, like you said, I will run into somebody that orders a bumper and they're like, hey, I sent you a friend request. And I'm like, man, sorry about that. And there's a lot of times where somebody order a bumper and I see and I got a pending request from them or something. And it is tough because I took about a year off. And when I did, steel went insanely high. Everybody knows how high steel went. And I only use A514 T1, call it what you want. That's all I use. And the price of it jumps exponentially. And I honestly could not make myself charge what it would take to build that bumper. So I just took a year off. And, in that year off, I think I seen a whole lot more bumper builders jump in the game then, and I've seen a whole lot of prices get what I consider to be out of hand. You know what I mean? We all do this. I don't do it for fun. You know what I mean? If I'm away from my family and I'm in my shop and the lights are on and my welder's running, I have to charge an hourly rate that's fair to everyone, and I have to make money off of it. But you can still do it honestly, because I've had just as many people approach me and say your bumper should be higher, and I just tell them I'm making what I need to make. You know what I mean? And that's everybody can set their price at whatever they want, but I mean you will have. It goes back to, like you said, the copying of products and stuff. When you're the guy that designed it, built the shop to build it in, bought the welder. I mean, I have a rack in my shop of burnt up welders, just literally a rack with 3 or 4 welders sitting on it that are parts machines, because doing this is hard on machines. You know what I mean? You can't run a pallet of 045 hardwire through a machine without it taking a toll on it. And to say you're welding versus burning 2 44-pound rolls in a day, that's when you're welding. You know what I mean?
Which it's hilarious now that you mentioned that, because I had this little Lincoln that I was using forever, and I'm in the welding trade school that's where I go to high school at, and yeah. I'm the only kid that's burned up a welder and brought it in to try to fix it. And the teacher had no idea what I was doing. He's like, because he's kind of a new, younger, like industry professional. Guys, in my opinion, the guy's not the smartest, but
hope he's watching.
Well, I hope so too. I told him. I mean, well, I try to be honest. Anyways, so he always kind of looks at derbying as like the same way the general public looks at derby, just about the hillbillies going out there to crash cars.
Absolutely.
And like, I remember I was showing him pictures of, like, I forget which car it was, but it was one of those ones I spent a bunch of time on, and like he couldn't believe it. Almost basically called me an idiot for doing it.
Yeah, you'll have that.
Which, I mean,
to an extent, he's right. You know what I mean? But anybody from the outside looking in, yeah. But in the same token, he may go home and play Call of Duty for 12 hours. You know what I mean? It's whatever you're passionate about. Like, I'll never throw rocks at somebody that puts their heart and soul into anything they do. Like, all you can do is look at it and say, man, that's not my thing, but pretty awesome to see. Anytime you see someone apply themselves that much to something, you have to have a level of respect for it. It doesn't matter if it's stripes, you mowing your lawn and you take your pride in your front yard, but to us, it's demolition derby, and like you said, the normal person comes by my shop to do something and they look at my car and they're like, you guys are insane. You're nuts. What are you thinking? But that guy may have a $50,000 bass boat at home and $10,000 worth of rods and reels to go fish to try to catch one fish every weekend. And I'm not throwing rocks at him. So
what is your passion?
I mean, I would say, it probably has to be demolition derby. I mean, anything with an engine in it, because I like demolition derby. I love demolition derby. It's what I like to do. But I mean, when it comes to, I'm into muscle cars, Harleys, anything that's got an engine in it, I'm all about. You know what I mean? And that's how it's always been. Doesn't matter if it's a car, a Harley, a boat, a 4-wheeler, a muscle car, old trucks. I mean, I have too many hobbies.
I feel you the same way. The only thing we don't own is an airplane, and I've been trying to buy one.
Yeah, my neighbor's got one of those, and he always tries to get me to go in there with him, but it's kind of what we call experimental.
Oh, wait. An experimental airplane. Is that just like 2x4s and duct tape, or how does that work?
It just depends. He's got parachutes with backpack and propellers and this and that. He flies over all the time and drops stuff for my kids, so. He's a good guy to have around, though.
That's awesome. So, what's your favorite Bible verse?
Oh man, that's tough. Like I said, man, that's real tough. I always ran Ecclesiastes 9:11 on my cars for a lot of years. And I don't know. That one's right there with me, but the one I've been running now, put on the full armor of God. That's kind of always sticks in my head. But no matter what, I mean, like I said, it's the world's not a great place anymore, and I mean, I try to do what I can, but man, I think when you're a Christian, you just get ridiculed that much more, especially when you fail, because you're looked at a different level, which is good and it's bad. But I mean, as a Christian, you're going to have failures, and you're going to fall short every single day. That's for sure. But when people, like you said, I always get crap because you go to a demolition derby and you're not drinking or anything like that. You're kind of like the outcast, which I don't. All of my best friends drink, smoke, party, whatever. That's fine. You can do whatever you want in your life, It's but for me, it's something that's never really been anything I want to be into, and I don't know. I just don't like anything that I don't want to say makes you not perform, but it slows you down in life. You know what I mean? Like anything that hinders your mind. I don't know. I could go get surgery and they're going to give me pain pills and I don't want to take them because I just, and I don't want anything that's taking the edge off of life. You got to learn how to deal with it no matter what. And yeah, it's tough, but shoot, I'm not perfect by any means. I screw up every single day, but try to get better.
I know exactly what you're saying. And going back to the whole not drinking thing, I know exactly where you're at because to be honest with you, I'm at that age. Everybody's partying, drinking, smoking some herb on the side after high school. But
Yeah.
be honest with you, doesn't apply to me. Everybody, even when you go to derbies, people are trying to get you to drink, and it's just like I don't see the value in it. We have a lot of
No.
things to do. Why?
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty funny because every year at River City, there's no one in our tent drinks. Mason Larson's in our tent, Cordell Hansen, Ryan Songaluski, my brother-in-law, me. We'd be in the tent working all night, and usually at 3 in the morning, you'll have a party crew come through or something, 10, 15 guys, and we got the radio jammed, and they come through, and they're like, man, how do you guys do it? None of you guys drink. And it's like, yeah, but, I don't know. I don't like things that, like I said, I don't like anything that takes control over you. You know what I mean? And like I said, I had bad experiences when I was young, so that's probably what molded me into that. But I mean, in my opinion, I'm not against it. Like you said, I don't look down on people that do it. I want that to be clear. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a casual drink or hanging out with your buddies and doing that. But there's a lot of people that it's ruined a lot of lives and ruined a lot of families. So
Which one thing that causes me to never drink is I see how people turn it when they're in problems, and the way I look at it is if you have a problem, it's easier to solve it than it is to delay it.
absolutely, and most of the time, the problems you have, there's somebody uh, one street over that would fist fight you to have your problems. You know what I mean? Because I always say that hey, when you get down on yourself and you're feeling sorry for yourself and you're at the lowest point, it's still really not that bad. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, there's people out there, you may be telling some guy how bad your life is and how this sucks and that sucks. And I didn't get to run my demolition derby car. And I could be telling somebody 2019, I didn't get treated fair, this, that, whatever. And this guy could listen to my whole story and go home and have a kid who's got cancer. So at the end of the day, what we consider problems, it's not a problem. It's most of the time it's just the 90-10 rule is what I always say. It's life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% how you react.
So I have this Crashing for Kids Kyle wristband,
Yeah.
and any time I'm just feeling down on myself, like this sucks, all these problems, I look at this and I was like, this kid has cancer and he's the happiest person I know.
Yeah, it's pretty humbling when you think about stuff like that. It's tough every year, Blizzard Bash and stuff. I mean, hats off to those guys. They do so much, with that, memorials and helping kids or a family in need and a kid with cancer. And it's like, man, when they play those videos and they bring those kids on the track, it's like I'm up there bawling like a baby. It's tough, because it's like, especially once you have kids of your own, because at the end of the day, it's like, man, you just got to be thankful for everything you do have.
That is one thing. Like the Derby community, like we love each other, we hate each other, but the one thing that we can all come together is to help someone in truly need, which
Absolutely.
it's amazing to see. Like even at Blizzard Bash this year, they raised I forget what the number was this year they raised from that auction, but it was an insane amount of money they donated to Kyle, which is it's amazing, is what it is.
It always is, and that's like I said. I have hats off to those guys. They've done it every year that I've been out there. When Sam had it, Tim had it. It was always someone, And before it was over with, it was a bucket passed around in the stands, and just people just opening their wallets and cash and everything. And at the end of the day, that money is not going to change. It's still just money. You know what I mean? But for people to show, it's like they worked hard for that money, and it's like, money can't fix things per se, but if it helps make that family or that kid's life easier for just a day, then take it all. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah.
I know exactly what you're saying. And just like that note, Gage, we just hit the 2-hour mark, my man.
Yep, I rambled pretty much the whole time.
Oh, you're all right. I think, to be honest with you, I think Ski's right. I think you are the most famous person because we held a very high viewer count throughout this entire thing, So like,
I don't know, Jason called me earlier and he's like, "Can you see the comments?" And I said, "I can't." And he's like, I don't want to see them. I don't want to know who's watching, and I don't want to see the comments because I'll probably freeze up."
Awesome. Well, there, my man. I think it's time to end this. So thank you for coming on. You got anything you want to say before we get off of here?
No, like I said, just like I said, anybody watching, just look forward to it. I'll be posting something soon about my actual business page, and it'll be a page that can be liked and has more info about buying my products and what I do, and more story of basically why I do the things the way I do and stuff like that, and just give people an avenue to see what I do, because just get my name out there. And I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do yet, but there's going to be some pretty killer giveaways and stuff on there too. So
that is awesome, my man. Thank you all for tuning in. We shall see you next week, you guys. Thank you.
all right, thanks, man.
Yep. Thank you, Gage.